Welcome back to Flashpoint. We now hear from Mecklenburg Democrats about how young people on the left are reacting to the results of the election. Joining us now, Charles DeLoach. Charles, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
You've had about a week to do a post-mortem of sorts, and Democrats had some really big success on the state level. What do you think went wrong elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's going to be a mix of factors when you lose an election like this, and everyone has a different take. The one thing I think people can't ignore is the global shift to backlash against incumbent parties. In the United States, actually, the incumbent party lost by the least amount of any of the G7 nations. And so I think we're seeing a lot of backlash to global inflation and an incapability to separate the administration from what people are feeling at the grocery store or at restaurants or when they're paying their rent. I personally am very proud of the work that the Biden-Harris administration did. And I think if you were to look at the policies that they put in place, and you can see how they were able to tame inflation, achieve a soft landing, that is incredibly impressive. Biden always says, compare me to the alternative, not the almighty. But at the end of the day, if you can't afford rent, if groceries are too expensive, people are going to hold the administration accountable. And I think that's what happened.
4 years ago, turnout here in Mecklenburg County was abysmal. So part of the strategy, Democrats invested heavily into Charlotte and spending millions of dollars, hiring a bunch of people. The idea was to drive up turnout here, where there's a population base. More Democrats live here than any other county. And Kamala Harris still received 3,000 fewer votes than Joe Biden. What happened?
No, it's a great question. I will say also, though, it's worth noting that turnout across the country was down. There are some things that you can do at the local level, and ground game is going to be one of the most important. But the unfortunate truth about ground game is that it can usually shift an election 1 to maybe 3 points if it's really, really good. And I think we had an incredible ground game. We knocked over 400,000 doors. We made millions of phone calls. And I do think that helped staunch the bleeding, so to speak, but that wasn't enough to overcome a nationwide trend.
Pete Buttigieg, I saw a clip with him this morning, and he said he feels like when it comes to solutions that the answers are going to be found on the local level across the country, issues that mayors see and city councils see. What would you tell Mayor Pete and national Democrats if you had the chance?
To help provide resources to those local efforts, because I agree with him. I actually worked for the Pete Buttigieg campaign back in 2020, so big fan of his. And one of the biggest problems I think Democrats have is not our policies, because if you do a blind test, if you ask people Democratic policies versus Republican, but you don't tell them which belongs to who, Democratic policies win every time. The difference is that when you pass a Democratic policy like the Inflation Reduction Act or the CHIPS Act, which requires all of these conditions to be met, and once they are, then the manufacturer who is considering moving back to the United States can get a subsidy, and then they have to hire locally. And I've probably already lost you, right? Like that's the kind of detail that you get into with Democratic policies. But it is a good thing, and it will help people over the long term. But that doesn't make a lot of difference to people in the meantime. And so what I'd like to see, and what we plan to do at the local Democratic Party, is a lot more constituent services. We need a resource for people who are hurting right now to have a connection to that nationwide policy so that they can get the benefit, right? There are a lot of subsidies available, for example, for upgrades to your home or for rental assistance. But you have to apply through the county. First of all, you have to know that exists, and then you need help with the application process because that's complicated. That's something that the Democratic Party can and should be doing so that we're actually helping people. And so that every time we show up to talk to voters, it's not just to ask them to do something for us, but so that we can be actually offering them something. Because at the end of the day, That's why we're Democrats. It's because we think the government should be a force for good in people's lives.
It appears that Mr. Trump did better with young people than he did 4 years ago or the 4 years before that. And while Kamala Harris had Beyonce and Taylor Swift and Oprah, he had podcasters, and that seemed to be really hopeful to get an audience that he didn't have before. Do you think Democrats missed an opportunity to do the same?
Do I think Kamala Harris should have gone on Joe Rogan? Probably. Do I think that would have changed the results? Probably not. Kamala Harris did go on a number of podcasts, right? She did the Call Her Daddy podcast, which is, I think, the second biggest by audience in the nation. One of the challenges that Democrats face is that there is this kind of new media ecosystem on podcasts and on YouTube and things like that is not explicitly political, right? It's cultural, it's vibes based. And those people, those content creators largely tend to trend to the right. One of the challenges, like I'm in a group text with a lot of my guy friends, for example. And one of the challenges I face constantly is that it's just not cool to care about politics when you're like in your late 20s, early 30s, especially as a guy, right? Like it's just not seen as masculine. But I don't know, punching down and making jokes and undermining the seriousness is a very common thing. And it's going to take men who do care and who are a part of those group chats to kind of stick up and find a way not to just shame their friends, because that does not work, but to kind of joke back. Like the fact that Donald Trump created this Department of Government Efficiency and it has two co-chairs, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. That the irony of creating an efficiency office and having two co-chairs is kind of immediately viewable, right? And that's the kind of thing you can get guys laughing about. But when they see, oh, well, the acronym spells Doge, and that's unserious, and that kind of aligns with the way that I view government, it's going to take a lot of time to pull people back into, I don't know, reality. I'm not sure exactly how to put it, but one of the main challenges that Democrats face is talking to people through a cultural and casual lens rather than talking down on them about policy.
All right. Charles DeLoach with Mecklenburg Democrats. Charles, thanks for coming on. We appreciate chatting.
Thanks so much again.
All right. More Flashpoint after this. Up next on Flashpoint, as former President Trump awaits his sentence for his hush money case, we verify if he will have the ability to pardon himself.